Hello, my name is Caleb Kidwell, and today I will be talking about COVID-19's effect on the upper and lower class citizens of Indiana economically. Throughout the entire year of 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic ravaged through the entire population of the world, Indiana included. This pandemic threw the entire world into a frenzy and placed the economy into a downward spiral. The pandemic hit Indiana, its economy was not spared. This pandemic resulted in a great spike in the unemployment rate for those people living in Indiana. And although it is back on the decline, it still has not returned to its normal rate. Not only has the unemployment rate in Indiana skyrocketed, but the average employment growth forecast for Indiana has cut into about half, if not more, both of which are detrimental to the economy of Indiana. Although the pandemic affected both the upper and lower class, the lower class has been hurt disproportionately more than the upper class. But why is this? As you can see from the map below, poorer areas such as downtown Indianapolis were hit much harder by the pandemic than richer areas such as Lawrence, Broad Ripple, and Castleton. The lower class of Indiana was hit so much worse because most people in the lower class are considered non-essential workers. So they are workers such as servers, fast food employees, and small business owners. While the upper class was not hit as hard because the majority of the upper class were considered essential workers because they worked in fields such as doctors, nurses, or governmental workers. So when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the majority of people in the lower class were laid off from their jobs, while the majority of people in the upper class were allowed to continue to work. This led to the lower class being unable to find jobs, food, housing, and healthcare services, while the upper class of Indiana was relatively unscathed by the pandemic. Educational bias is also an important factor of why the upper class was hit less by the COVID-19 pandemic than the lower class. People in the upper class are able to afford to get into colleges and universities and get a higher education, while those in the lower class are not able to afford this as much, and therefore they cannot go into an upper level position such as those that are considered essential workers. Therefore, those in the lower class are more likely to have been laid off and hit harder by the COVID-19 pandemic than those in the upper class. When conducting my research, I wanted to see how the COVID-19 pandemic had affected someone in the lower class firsthand. To do this, I interviewed my friend's dad, Sean Wang, who regularly works 5 jobs just to support his family. He told me about how in the beginning he didn't think it would affect him too much, but after the first couple months of the COVID-19 pandemic, his jobs started reducing their hours, and then he got laid off altogether. He told me how he had to scrounge to try to make enough money to support his family with the reduced hours. He said he tried to work as many hours as possible that he could, but as time went on, his hours kept getting less and less, no matter how he tried. He also told me that no matter how hard he tried, in the end, he was not able to keep up the same support for his family that he usually would, and that it saddened him very much that he was not able to keep the support up for his family, but he was not ashamed of his efforts because he tried to make it as hard as he could. And even though he was not able to provide in the end, he vowed to try his hardest to make everything work and get his family back to where they were, if not higher, after the pandemic.